So if you've been waiting on pins and needles like the rest of us for any information regarding how the PTR has been going and when will Season 2 come, we got a little bit of information here from Pez Radar posted right here to the Blizzard forums that has some information. And I just want to highlight a couple things here because one of them might be a little bit scary, might be a little bit GG. I guess it kind of depends on which side of the fence you fall on. Pez Radar here being very transparent and apologizing just because the timeline has been slower and longer than what was expected. They're being very transparent about it. Thank you so much, Adam. We really, really do appreciate that. But it sounds like they're typically taking some of the buffer time that they would have implementing the patch, having the end of the season, having a stopgap, and then having the season itself. Looks like it's going to go from Season 1 directly into Season 2. If you read down here, basically the example that they give is Season 1 will go up to 4:59 p.m. and Season 2 will start at 5 p.m. Now, we still don't have an exact date or an exact time for when this is going to happen, but the idea right now is once 2.5 actually hits the live server, anywhere between 1 to 2 weeks after that point is when Season 2 will start. And all of this should be shortly after the PTR itself ends. So again, while that isn't a specific date and time, we at least have a structure or a timeline once that happens. And then there were 3 things that they got specifically from player feedback that they want to touch on and tweak additionally, so that patch 2.5 brings a significantly new and interesting and well-tuned experience in Season 2. The first note here is that players were noticing some zones were kind of not great for terror zones. So expect some of them to be moved out and some others to be moved in. So if you took a look at our own personal tier list for the terror zones, you might have seen places like Lower Kuros, maybe Kuros Bazaar, plus a disused Phantom Ruined Temple, although Ruined Temple would be pretty good. Also the sewers in Act 3. Honestly, just a lot of Act 3 maps in general. But some of them just strictly aren't great or may very well not even be farmed when they become terrorized. And it looks like we're going to see a bit of some shuffle there. So I will personally be looking to update the resistance sheet, as well as my tier list, and also what builds will farm well, depending on what new zones move in and out. Players found some of the Terror Zone content to be easy, but we can also determine that characters played on PTR who offered this specific feedback a lot of the times were coming from Hammerdin players. The team has some ideas on this and we'll be sharing that soon. Here's the thing that should really rustle your jimmies here. I expect it to create a bit of a shift in build class opportunities for some players. Now, here's the interesting part. The team has some ideas on this that we will be sharing soon, and Adam already has the expectation that this will be creating a shift in build class opportunities. Now, Adam, let it be known, I hate Hammerdins. Not even because I think that they're overpowered, but because I'm actually just tired of people complaining about Hammerdins. So if they were to get nerfed, I think a lot of people would think it's justified. But as I've gone on record saying before, I don't think that the game is in a state right now where nerfing is the answer for any particular comparative power difference here. Honestly, I would love to see other builds continue to get brought up. It would be weird if they hit only the Hammerdin with some nerfs in a Season 2 patch that doesn't look to address any other build diversity, build strengthening, or underused skill changes like we saw in patch 2.4. So what does that mean? One of the ways that I've seen some people look at terror zones and what can be done about them is increasing resistances, perhaps giving monsters additional magic resistance in terror zones. And all of these things would go a long way to kind of rein in the Hammerdin in some way, shape, or form. But I want people to think about this. If it's not just a nerf to Hammerdins themselves, but is instead either a nerf to the auras that they have, which would affect the auras that your mercenaries can have and other player characters can gain through items, or if it's the addition of magic resistance across a terror zone or anything like that, other builds that were already struggling are going to get hit so much harder. Let's look at it this way. Let's add 30% magic resistance to every monster that's in a terror zone. That won't really increase the number of magic immunes in the game. It will slightly decrease the overall effectiveness of Hammerdins. But if you look at something like the Bone Spear Necromancer, all of a sudden they're going to be struggling so much harder in anything above Players 3 difficulty when they already weren't top tier builds. and they already weren't coming close to competing with the Hammerdin. Depending on what we ultimately learn about this, I think it could go a lot of different ways. I think some people may be super stoked, some people may be really upset, but I just hope that there aren't any unforeseen consequences against already underpowered builds and how they're able to function in farm in terror zones. Terror zones being what I think is an answer to the overall stagnation in build meta, and that you really need to play a couple different things to be able to maximize your effective gains from terror zones, as opposed to just being able to pick a build and farm these zones that you know are high value and that you will not encounter any problems in. So I hope we're not looking to overcorrect in any ways here. The last two things are we will have more information on unlock conditions for terror zones and how long each zone will be terrorized as well. We appreciate those who offered their thoughts on this. So this says to me, A, terror zones are going to be a thing that your character will be able to unlock the ability to opt into. So right now we know that's a little button that you have to opt into so that terror zones will be active in any games that you make. And my expectation is that you're not going to be able to do that until your character has beaten hell difficulty. There's nothing else that really makes sense to me, but we know that unlike right now, there will be some kind of unlock conditions for terror zones since we will have more information on this facet of them, and how long each terror zone will be terrorized for, which is also very interesting. I've seen people say that terror zones should be terrorized for less long, so it rotates more. I've seen people saying it should be terrorized for longer, so if you have a build that struggles in other ones, but you get a good one, you'll be able to play longer. I honestly think that an hour is perfectly fine for the overall length, but I'm interested to see what they may be brewing up, because at the end of the day, to be able to maximize terror zones, you're going to need to have a build that can farm in the majority of them. So how often they fluctuate or which ones are included kind of doesn't matter in the long run. And then the last point here is mostly just a call out to they are seriously considering what it would take to implement this in single player. We've heard some of the similar things, which are basically that they're able to tweak things on the fly and they're able to troubleshoot online much easier than baking it into the single player code. And also that we probably should not expect it to exist in single player at the start of Season 2 or when Season 2 or Patch 2.5 rolls out. But yeah, what do you think? Is this really a Hammerdin nerf that's coming down the lines? Are we looking at some type of additional terrorization challenge edition? Are we getting additional modifiers on monsters, bigger resistances, a change to how terror zones work? I can't think of many ways where they would implement it across the board that wouldn't have negative repercussions, and I hope that I'm wrong. If you're somebody who's saying, here it is, this is all that I needed, a Hammerdin nerf, let me know down in the comments. A lot of people recently have been giving a lot of feedback that mostly centers around nerf powerful builds, nerf powerful builds. Again, I do not agree with that assessment. I don't think that we're at the point where nerfs can actually be implemented in a positive way in the game without completely revamping a lot of the different core features and systems that exist in the game. But I'm just one person. What do I know? I only have, 10,000 hours in this game, just like everybody else who's been playing it for 20 years. So who am I to say what would be good or bad for the game in general? But let me know what you think. This is very exciting. Obviously, I will be waiting with bated breath until we have exact dates and times. The fact that we're getting this communication is closing the gap on when I think we will realistically be getting Season 2. And I'm so excited to be able to dive into terror zones, see how it changes the 99 grind, see how drop rates are affected. All in all, super stoked. And yeah, that's what I got. I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.